Now guys, we're going to play some Plo Vision flops and turns in single raise pots and 3-bet pots. Alright. I think it's an easy call on the flop. And now I think it's a fold here. Probably a call with hearts, although not loving the situation for sure. Well, no, I think we have a raise. Okay. Okay, maybe we think that he's never checking back a set of aces or sixes on the turn. I think we have to call here. Well, easy fold here. Through that pot, he checks. He should check most of the time with his hand. And here, I think you should bet maybe 70 or 80% of the time. 100% of the time. Okay, so if we had ace jack 8-6 with the ace of hearts, now still 100% of the time. Yeah, pardon. One thing that we did not consider, it's a big mistake here, is that we have to consider how often are we going to bet here on this particular spot. And for two reasons. One, this is a lockdown board, so we are going to bet small, and it's also a 3-bet pot. So at least Plo Vision is set up so that if he bets, he's going to bet just 1/3 of the pot. Because you are going to bet smaller, you are allowed to bet with a higher frequency. And the second point is that this is a low board, and since it is a low board on a 3-bet pot, you are supposed to hit this range or you are supposed to have more nuts than the big blind, and therefore you are allowed to bet this kind of boards more often. Third point is that the big blind did check back, although for the second reason above mentioned, it is true that the big blind, even if he has a big hand, he's going to check back quite often. So because we are going to bet this 65% of the hand, we are allowed to bet with 6-8, even if we have the ace x of hearts. So yeah, the first. So yeah, before looking at your hand, it's important to look at the overall situation in order to look for the perfect strategy with your hand. Here 6-4. We do not have a heart, but we're probably going to bet this. Although this is kind of a middle hand, in the sense that if we go check raise, it's going to be a bit of an icy situation, but okay, and that's why we are checking. So first of all, on this flop we are going to bet just 42% of the time, in comparison with the 65% of the time that we were betting on the last situation. We are only going to bet 42% of the time because we do not have a range advantage, not particularly. In fact, in this situation, the big blind is always going to check back on single raise spots. At least this is the way that Plo Vision is configured. And also the sizing is a bit bigger. So if he bets, he's going to bet 70%. So because of those two situations, the bet sizing is 70%, and we do not have a particularly range advantage, that's why we're only going to bet 42% of the time. And with this particular combo, we are going to check back, apparently. Probably with the ace 6-4 with a heart, we are going to bet a bit more often, like on this occasion, or maybe we have like backdoor spades, for instance. So yeah, probably you can use this as a randomizer when you are in doubt whether or not to bet. Look at your size cards. Here we do not have a heart, and we do not have backdoor spades. Probably also having backdoor spades is good because we have more equity, and it's also good because maybe the big blind is going to check raises a small percentage of the time with kind of a gut shot and backdoor spades, or an open-ended and backdoor spades. And without backdoor spades, maybe that particular hand, just like an open-ended, for example, it may be more of a call on his shoes. So we are blocking a bit his check raising range when we have spades and when we have hearts. Okay, here if this was like sixes, I think this would be a call very often. Nines, with this particular hand, I think we want to bet nines because we're blocking a little bit the nines on his shoes. But we are going to check. Although it's kind of 50-50, so probably okay to bet. You can obviously mix. Okay, 5 deuce 3. This is a 50% bet on the flop instead of 70%. That's because this is a lockdown board. So whenever it's a lockdown board, Plo Vision is just going to bet 50 and not 70. Here I think it's a fold. I do not want to call or raise because we're not blocking the nuts here particularly well. Think this is a call. The sizing is just small. It would be a call even with the ace of spades, the ace x of spades. I think you're going to call very, very often here. With the ace x of spades, you just raise 27% of the time. And then when you have the ace x of spades, you can raise 40% of the time. So the reason why you cannot raise always with the ace of spades is because you are going to have more suited aces than non-suited aces. And if you raise with the ace x of spades every single time, then you are going to be unbalanced and you are going to be biased versus value. You are not going to have enough bluffs, plain and simple, since you are mostly going to raise with the ace of spades and you are going to raise sometimes with queens, but I don't know, maybe 1 in 5 queens and 1 spade maybe. Let's see. Queens and 1 spade, you raise 14% of the time. So your most likely raises are going to be with the ace of spades. Even with queens and spades, you are just going to call, like with the queen. Like, no, here you are raising, but okay, here you are raising because you think that you are up either against the ace of So here you call because if you raise, maybe the jack of spades falls. Maybe that's the reasoning behind this. It's a bit difficult to understand, but yeah, mostly calling with the king of spades. I would advise to do that. Okay. Lockdown board, that's why he can bet just 50%. And here I think it's going to fall. Jack 10-8. And we are just going to call here because there is the 9 queen or 9-7 and the ace high of ace x of spades, which is going to be this. Here with the 10-4, it's probably a bit better to bet than with the 9s, just because we are going to have more tens than our opponent, probably. Well, it's kind of close. If it's Jack Jack 4 or Queen Queen 4, you are going to see bet this very often, and King King 4 or Ace Ace 4. Here we have backdoor claps. I think it's going to fold. If it was something a bit better, like Ace 9 Jack 4, I think now you can start to call and raise sometimes, particularly when you have backdoors. No, actually on this occasion you are going to call with backdoors and raise without them, just because you want to finish the hand right there. Yeah, sometimes when you have backdoors, you bet and sometimes you just, or you raise, and sometimes you just call. We have a jack, which is good. I think that this is, I think we can mix it up. Yeah, but it's most likely a check. I think probably with something like the Queen 6-7, Queen 6-7-8. Now it becomes a bit more of a call, of a bet here. You are blocking a higher flash. Or with the King of Spades, now you are betting very, very often here. Or, I don't know, the Ace of Spades were actually checking back. And the reason the reason we are checking back is probably because we are going to for a check raise here, I would imagine. No, with the Ace X of Spades, we are mostly betting with and without it. Yeah, the reason why, well, first of all, it's yeah, we are betting more often with the Ace X of Spades, and we are not raising all that often with the Ace X of Spades, just with one spade. Probably the reason to do that is that if he has a spades, he's going to call turn and river. So the problem is that you are not going to be as effective in order to make him fold a small flush on that particular situation, since by the river the pot is not going to be that big. So maybe, and I'm speculating, maybe that's the reason why you are not betting all that often with the Ace X of Spades. Or maybe you would just want to check raise those hands. Yeah, it's kind of hard to know, but anyway, here we did 3-bet. I mean, big blind 3-bet, and we are on the small blind, and although the big blind show weakness by checking back, this is a board that in principle should be should be very favorable for his hand, and therefore we cannot c-bet this 60% of the time. I think we have to check this flop very often, and that's why we cannot start betting with those particular combos. And we have, yes, we have the 5 of hearts, but it's somehow, it's a bit irrelevant to have the 5 of hearts. Here he could still have aces and hearts, I don't know, kings and hearts, something like this. So here we're going to check 89% of the time, which is an abysmal percentage to be checked, and therefore we have to check back this 100%. Also to be noted that if we have something like King Jack, since we're going to check back that often, I think that we are probably not going to bet always with the King Jack. Yeah, in fact, with the King Jack we're only going to bet 20% of the time. Although if we have hearts, something else, we can start betting a bit more aggressively for sure. But yeah, just keep in mind that when you are checking back so often, then you may have to check quite often also with your strong hands. Three, 4, 8, 10. I think that, well, there are 3 things we can do here. We can check, bet small, or pot. First of all, this is a very dynamic board, so I think that we have to bet, if we are going to bet, we should bet pot more often than 33%. First consideration. Second consideration, we have top pair, which is great, and we have a backdoor. So I think that we are going to bet this, I don't know, maybe overall 60-70% of the time, and probably 2/3 of that 70% you have to bet pot, and 1/3 33%. So let's see if we are anywhere close. So here 50% of the time we are betting, which seems reasonable. I think that when the small blind checks, I think this 50% betting percentage on the turn out of position after check, I think it's pretty standard for what I've seen, but we have to confirm this point. But with this particular combo, so we said that we were going to bet this 70% of the time, 64 and 6, so we were just spot on 70%. And the important point is that if you're going to bet, you have to bet pots. I mean, I said 20% or like 14% or 20% overall, bet 33%, but here in fact in this scenario he's going to pot almost always. And for some reason with this particular combo, he's not betting all that often. And he's mixing some small sizings just because maybe you want some weak flash draws to draw. Yeah, let's see if we get things right here. So we said that we were going to bet 50%. Here I think we have one problem, that we do not have any clubs whatsoever. Because of this, I think this should probably be quite often a check, probably. And if we bet, we should bet big most of the time, just because very dynamic board. So yeah, because of this, you are going, if you bet, you are most likely going to bet big. With this particular hand, yeah, with this particular hand we are checking all the time, although I believe that there is a problem in the convergence of the simulation, because it's not reasonable to check this hand and bet that one and bet this one. So it's probably better just to look over those 42 hands and take a decision. So according to this level, it's better just to bet like 60% of the time here, 65% of the time, just with one pair and an open-ended here, and just bet pot here. It's just better. With, yeah, I mean, with two clubs as well, mostly bet pot. Although there is some mixing going on there. Jack 10-8. It's a fold right here. Ace 8. I think you can just bet 50% pot here. Now he checks, check, he checks again. Here keep in mind that your range is cut. You're not going to have aces here, because you would raise with ace with all combinations probably. Well, here it's an easy fold, I guess. So look at this, he's almost always calling. And because of this, if you have ace queen here, you have to, maybe you can raise 40% of the time. 50% of the time. If we had aces, we do not have aces here. 50% of the time. Most of the time when you are calling so often, you cannot go as far as to bet 50% of the time, but yeah, maybe on that spot, since you're only going to, well, you need to find some bluffs there though. Here it's a call, and probably here he's going to bet. He bets 75. I think we can start folding here. Yeah, if he would have bet 33, we're probably calling most of the time, but yeah. Here, so we said that, well, no, this is a 3-bet pot, so I think here I would advise betting pot. Well, he's betting the 75%, that's because this is very dynamic board, and yeah, we are kind of betting like 50% after a check on the in position on the flop. yeah, after we check the flop, I think we have to stick it in, although not particularly happy about our situation, I guess. Here this is a perfect candidate to just call. For sure with the queen jack 6. In fact, we do not have a raising range here. Even something like ace king queen jack apparently is displayed as a call. Or queens is for sure a call. Yeah, just call with everything here. It's just, even with aces, it's just a call. So yeah, I guess that we want to protect our calling range, and since we want to protect it, we cannot start raising with the better queens there. So yeah, on very dry boards, you mostly want to call check raises on the flop with all your range. That's why you are just calling there, even with the best queens. Here, yes, we can call here. We are blocking the raise because we are blocking the 8-9. So, because we are blocking the ace-9, so yeah, this is a perfect apparently this is a perfect candidate to raise. With just a queen, we would call most of the time unless we are full. Something like queen 5-6-7, no real reason to raise. Queen 8, we are going to raise here for sure, because since we are going to bluff with the 8-9, we need to raise here with queen 8 most of the time. Or no, I mean with a queen 9, we're going to raise most of the time. A9, exclude a queen. Probably calling with a pair of 8s, I would advise here. Yeah, with a pair of 8s, a pair of 9s. A pair of 9s we're mostly calling. You can start raising a bit with 9s. And then raising with the queen 9 most of the time, and bluffing with the 8-9. Seems a reasonable strategy there. 5 for deuce. This is I know this is a check because we are out of position. So, and against a bet, we're probably just folding here, just without a spade, just with one pair, one gut shot. I don't really like monotone boards. Here this is a spot where you have to bet like 70% pot. Now, when he checks, we should bet like 50% of the time, right? We've said. This is a spot where if you bet, you are mostly going to bet big. And the reason is because there are two flush draws here, and also it's not that likely that you have 5-7, that you have a full house. So because of this, it's not It's not very dry. It's pretty dynamic board, I would say, although you could have still some full houses. So if we're going to bet 50%, I think jacks it's a reasonable candidate to bet. Here you are not going to have a lot of aces, kings, or queens, maybe some kings and queens, but so here maybe you can bet overall 70% of the time and mostly potting. And we are wrong. We are right in the sense that we are going to bet 47, almost 50% of the time. But here with this particular combo, we're going to mostly check back because we do not have a flush draw. With a flush draw, it's actually more of and surprisingly enough, we are mostly going to bet small, which is a bit surprising in my opinion. I'm trying to rationalize this. Well, maybe it's all worth things that we have 5-7. We are full quite often here. Could be. So yeah. So apparently we are mostly going to bet small. And since we're mostly going to bet small, what we are going to do is whenever we are going to bet small with our weakish hands, like this one, even with a flush draw, and with the 5-7, if we have here tens, what we are going to do is we are going to bet maybe, I don't know, 70 or 80% of the time, and mostly bet big here. So 30, 40, so just 60% of the time, not 70. It was a bit off. And in fact, we are going to bet 1/3 quite often here, like almost 50-50. So I was right in the sense that we are going to have the times that we bet, we are going to be to bet big in 33 out of 60% of the times. So we are going to bet in a higher proportion here. I mean, the sizing is going to be big in a higher proportion on this scenario in comparison with this scenario, where most of the time we are going to bet small, if that makes sense. And with a 5, 7, 5-10, we are, I think it's going to be a similar pattern to that one. Actually, we tend to bet smaller here. I'm not sure why. 5-7. No, we tend to bet small. And 5s, we probably tend to bet small. Yeah. Yeah, 7s, I think we are going to bet quite big, because we are not blocking the 5 and we are not blocking our opponent from having ace king queen 10, for instance. So yeah, 30-30. And with something like aces, we are going to bet mostly small whenever we bet. Okay, so So yeah, just keep this in mind. You are going to bet smallish with your weaker over pairs or with your over pairs overall, and mix a strategy when you have a 5s or 10s. 6A without a 5. E6A. Hearts. And here you're going to be mixed as well. It's hard to implement this strategy, I would say, but here we have just folding here. Yeah, we are folding because we have a weak made hand and no draw. So I think this is going to be a common theme. I mean, the problem is that the 8, the 9, the queen, the king, the ace, the heart, and we could still be beat. So that's why we're just folding on the flop. So although your equity is kind of okay, the problem is that your hand is going to be very hard to play because you are not going to be able to distinguish what is your equity on the hand. That's why, although your equity is kind of correct on the flop, yeah, it's going to be hard to distinguish your equity afterwards. This is a very easy. I think this has to be a check because, I mean, no bet small. Okay, we'll go for a cup of coffee. So apparently this is probably a check. Yeah, if we're betting 40% of the time. I mean, here we have a problem because we do not have spades here, which is a bit problematic. This, if we're going, so he's going to check on the big blind when the ace pops, reasonable. Now I think you can fold. For a 10, I think you can see bet like for 40% of the time, right? And if you bet, you're going to bet like the third spot because it's pretty dynamic board, and this is a folder. Here's same idea, you can bet 70% of the pot. If you are going to bet just 40% of the time, I think this is an easy check back with a middle pair and a medium kind of backdoors. So yeah, we are betting 40% of the time, and this particular hand just checking seems alright. With one heart, you are a bit more inclined to bet, quite more inclined to bet indeed. Probably because yeah, even more inclined to bet with one heart than with two, just because when you have two hearts, you have a middle made hand and a medium draw. So if the flash is to the 9, I'm pretty sure you're going to check most of the time. Like here. Queen. Or just like here, even with a queen high flash. Okay, yeah, you cannot have the 9-7 because the 7 of hearts is over there. So even with the queen high flash, you are going to check here 100%. With 0 hearts, you check. With the queen of hearts or the ace of hearts, you are more inclined to bet. 5 with the ace of hearts, you bet always. Just because if you bet, and they check raise you, you are probably just going to fall on the flop. Here, well, we said that we are going to bet 50% out of position against a check on the turn. This is a perfect candidate to be bet, just because you have two pair, and it's actually pretty unlikely that you are beat. So I think that you want to bet here with this particular combo maybe 70 or 80% of the time, and most of those you're going to bet big. Sorry, we were talking about the big blind. With this particular combo, I think I would bet big on the big blind most of the time. Here now it's an easy call. I mean, there is no point in raising here. Obviously, if we had queens, we have to raise. Do we raise all the time? I think we should raise, I don't know, very, very often, because it's a very dynamic board. So yeah, with queens being such a dynamic board, we raise very, very often, even with the ace X of hearts. And we would raise 70% according to this. So the problem is, which kind of bluffs do we have there? We probably have to raise with some nice rundowns there, some of the time at least. Those monotone boards are really not that interesting. Here, well, it's a check out of position. 3-4-8. If we are going to bet this 40% of the time, I think we have to mostly check with this particular combo. So yeah, if we are c-betting 45% of the time, with this particular combo we check 97% of the time. We apparently can c-bet with two backdoors. The 5-4 deuce. The thing is that we do not have backdoors. I mean, we have backdoors. We do we are representing ace. We could have ace-3, although we are not blocking our opponent from having an ace-3. I mean, we know that our opponent doesn't have two aces, but he could still have ace-3 or 3-6. So I think this is going to be check most of the time. In fact, this is 97% at check. So if we had guessed this, then we could have arrived to that same conclusion. And with the 3-6, it's going to be a check like 89% of the time. So 7-5-4. Well, it's tempting to raise, but we do not have many jacks. On our range. Well, I think it's going to be a mixed strategy here, to be honest. So I would call, but it's probably like 50-50. No, apparently it's very over. It's a raise very often. Probably with jacks. Okay, with jacks is more of a call. Okay, again, I see your point. So apparently, yeah, it's not so strong to slow play. Apparently, with if it was jack 4, 5, 6, now I know we are just raising here. So yeah, probably not strong enough to slow play apparently. And we are going to mix this with 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 8 is just a goal. Okay, that's surprising. So yeah, so we raise 2 pair most of the time, sets quite often, although we slow play sometimes, and then we need to raise with some draws, right? So I'm trying to figure it out which kind of hands we raise. Is like 5-3, is like 5-3. Mm. So yeah, we just raise with and we call here. I mean, okay, we are using some ace jack 6-7 when we have a pair and a gutshot, just to bluff here apparently. Ace jack deuce 8, raising some of the time. So yeah, those are going to be our bluffs, our semi-drawing, some draws with together with a pair. 5, 6, 7, just a call. So yeah, apparently you are never raising because he could have jacks apparently. So you prefer to block a jack and then jack deuce 3 or jack deuce 5 is going to be a raise 100%. Okay. So yeah, you tend to raise with two pair and with a jack and then the gutshot, for instance, and you call quite frequently with jacks actually. The reason to call with jacks is because you are blocking the continuation range of your opponent. So your opponent is not going to have many 5, 6, 7, 8, so you kind of want to slow play there. Here it's an easy bet, I would say. We're going to c-bet 80% of the time, and with those tens, it's a perfect candidate to c-bet, blocking the continuation bet of our opponent. Goes check, check, so here we should bet 50% of the time, apparently. Here, probably a call. I wonder what do you do with tens, something like ace 10, 10, 4, 3. You tend to raise or fold, and with ace 10, 10, 5 you tend to raise more. Ace 10, 10, queen, ace 10, 10, 3. Yeah, so with tens you raise some of the time, although not always, just 2/3 apparently. And without clubs you raise, with 2 clubs you raise as well. Yeah, okay. Nice. Call and play difficult turns and rivers, I would say. Here with the 9-5-4, this is an easy check, I would say, without a heart. With a heart, I think it's going to be a bet, probably, most of the time. And with 2 hearts, kind of mix a strategy there. Because if you bet and they raise, you can probably still call there. 6-4-3. Just folding here. Your equity is not terrible. You have backdoor spades, but no heart. So yeah, You could be beat. It's going to be hard to play turns and rivers, I guess. 3, 7, 10, 10, and now as played, I would fold here. You are probably going to stab a fair amount on the turn. 7, 8, and I think as before, you are not going to raise this always. So you are not always going to use your blockers, but I think that 2 out of 3 you can raise here. Especially having the 9 of hearts is useful, I guess. Call. Well, yeah, the reason to call is that we are going to call very often here, apparently. And because of this, you are going to bluff turns and rivers representing the 9-10. Although the problem is that in real life, your opponent is going to expect you to raise with the 9-10 very often. And you're going to have your fair amount of 9-10s on the turn, since you are not going to raise all of them. Deuce 3, 5. Well, as before, the Deuce 3, 5, you are not going to have 4, 6 very often or at all. Because of this, you are going to check this almost 100% of the time. So you bet this just 18% of the time. So yeah, apparently with this combo, you kind of prefer to bet. However, with the Ace X of hearts, we're just checking here, which is probably a bit surprising. I don't know, maybe it's the fact that when we bet with this hand, maybe we fall to a raise. If he raises to, he should raise to 50%, I guess, because it's a lockdown board. I think that we are still going to call here or raise. Raise, indeed. If it was Ace-Jack 9-5, I think we are going to start to fold sometimes. Oh, we are still raising with the Ace-8 here. 9. Ah, we are raising. Okay, that's quite aggressive. It's 6. Yeah, but we are going. Yeah, but now we are calling a bit more. But yeah, good to know that we are going to find some raises there with the Queen High Flush. %, pot because it's lockdown board. Probably I just check most of the time. So it's, yeah, we bet 50, just 33% of the time here apparently. With this particular combo, we bet almost always, because we have backdoor spades, backdoor hearts. Without backdoor hearts, it's just a check. Okay. Well, this is a check out of position. If he bets 1/3, are we going to call here? That's the thing. I think probably just folding, because we are throwing to bluff. Yeah, fold is the correct answer, although there is yeah, we're always folding. No, actually we're okay. With backdoor spades we call. We even raise sometimes. With 3 hearts we call. With kind of a pair and 2 hearts we raise some percentage of the time. I think with 8s we have to raise almost 100% of the time. Just 70% of the time. Just 70% of the time. Okay. Three, 4, 6. I think we're going to check here most of the time. If we are betting here, in general we're betting 50% of the time. However, when the ace hits, we're going to check a bit more often, since we do not have aces here. And I think it's just going to be a check fold, I would assume. 8-3-3. Well, here if we can bet 40% of the time. We do not have a heart. We have 7s. I think. If we had something like ace queen, queen X, we would check most of the time. With this combo, I mean, I see we should check sometimes because we do not hold a heart. On the other hand, our pair is so bad that maybe we just want to bluff here, because turns and rivers are going to be very hard to play. So that's why I was a bit inclined to bet here. So 40, we never bet here. What if we had the deuce 7? Just a check. So with the 10, 7-7 deuce and a heart, I think. No, we're still checking back. And with aces without hearts, we are checking back most of the time. We bet a bit more often with the ace of hearts and with aces and hearts, like here. So overall, pretty mixed strategy with all hands. Probably we bet most of the time with 3x, right? Here when he raised, this is particularly strong because it's very hard for him to have 7-4, so it's kind of, I mean, we should be in alert if he's check raising here on that spot. Because of this is a pretty dry board, a 3-bet pot already. I think this is going to be played very often as a call, even with the nuts. So I think we're going to call here. See, 51, 8, 12. So pretty often plays as a call. Here we have backdoor hearts, although with 3 hearts, which is not that great. Still 1 in 3 we raise here. We had 7, 4, 8. Now I think we would raise. No, still we are mostly calling. 7, 4, 8. 9. 7, 4, 6s. Still calling there. It's apparently mostly calling. You see there, here we're going to check very often here. So here we should bet maybe like 60% of the time, 60-70% of the time. So this is a perfect candidate to bet with the blockers and some backdoor equity. Here overall we just calling, I guess. The thing is that we are not going to check raise all that often, so because of this we cannot start raising here so often with the 10, 10, 7, 4. No, still a call here. So So the hands that we are going to raise here are trips, full houses, 3 full house, 3 full house, trips, full house, trip, and some top 2. Although what is top 2 here? Yeah, some hands with a 7 and then yeah. Yeah, something like 10-8-7-4. You prefer to have a 10 because you are blocking the 10-9s here. So yeah, something like 10-8-7-4. You are raising some of the time here. 10-8-7-6. 10-8-7-6. Yeah. So yeah, those are going to be your main bluffs. Something with a 10 and an 8. And in order to raise, you would never raise with something like 9-6-5-4. Just calling. You prefer to raise with something like 8-9-10 jack. This is a raise pretty often. Or 9-8. Probably pretty I mean, with pretty often, I mean like 50% of the time. Because, well, you're going to call very often, so you cannot raise always when you're holding 9-8. So this is kind of rule of thumb. So whenever you're calling very often, don't raise more than 50% of the time with your good hands. Here it's a call, for example. So you get the picture, right? You raise sometimes with your 9 and sometimes as a bluff with an 8 and preferably a 7 on your hand. And maybe a straight draw. Just because if your opponent has a 9, then you have some ways to improve to a straight maybe. And also you are blocking a little bit the continuation range of your opponent. Here, well, it's a check because it's out of position against a bet. A 5. And we have backdoor spades. I think we have to fold, although it's close. Yeah, in fact we are calling. No, we are calling when we have hearts. With backdoor spades is actually a fold right here. 3-3-4. Well, if we want to bet this 60% of the time, maybe this is a hand that we could bet with the backdoor spades and the cat shot. Okay, check. So yeah, we're just betting this 50% of the time because we're not that. I mean, we have more threes, but we also have a lot of hands which do not have a pair at the moment. So with this particular combo, we check, although we can bet sometimes, but mostly checking there. The queen 6-6. We're going to call very often here because this is very dry board, and with this particular combo we're just going to call. If we had queens, I think we're going to call, in fact we're always going to call here no matter what you have. Even when you have queens or sixes or, you know, ace king queen jack, doesn't matter. You're just going to call and play your position on turns and rivers on a very very dry board anyway. So this is 3. He shouldn't have many check races here. Well, although if he has an ace, he's going to be strong, right? Here, I think same concept applies. I think here you need to call almost always, even with ace 3. See, you are going to call almost or always in this case. Just because it's pretty dry board, although there is a flush draw out there. If you have an ace and your opponent doesn't, and has a flush draw, for instance, you're still blocking your opponent from making a flush draw with your queen, etc. Here, well, this is a call most of the time. In fact always, but it's better to look at this level. You raise 20% of the time, so yeah, you can just call every single time there. Here the raise is I think it's a call. We have 30. If we make a queen or a 9, we're going to be very happy. And we could be ahead. Although, well, here obviously, and this is a scenario where you are going to check with all your range. Oh, that's small, what the fuck. I think I would check here. Yeah, okay, I'm trying to rationalize where we are checking. Probably, well, it's a bit surprising that you're going to lead this 40% of the time. And maybe the reason is that you still have some 10s. Well, you could perfectly have 10 queen. And if you have a 10, 8, 9, 7. No, 10, not 10, 9, 8, 7 is probably because you are not afraid of flush draw. 10, 8, 9, ace. Now you're betting. Let's say we bet and he raises. I'm curious if we would call. I mean, of course we're going to call with this one, but I'm curious if we would call with, I don't know, 10, 8, 9, jack. 10, 8, 9, jack is a call. 10, 8, 9, 5 is a call. So whenever we're holding a 10, we're calling, apparently. And if we exclude the 10, we're probably folding. If we exclude the 10 and the queen, we're calling with an ace and a flush draw. Or an overpair, like aces and kings. We exclude the 7, 10, queen, 7. We fold with 3 spades, with 3 hearts. And yeah, pretty surprising lead there, like 40% of the time. Check. I think he should bet this very often. This is a check. Sorry, we're on this position. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, our hand is so bad, but we still want to bluff here. And we're going something like, I don't know, Jack, King, I don't know, 6, 7, 8. It's just a check. So yeah, with some showdown value, we wanna check. Apparently, 5, 6, 9. Well, this position is a check for sure. Here we can bet just 50% pot on a dry board, meaning that if you have a 9, you have the nuts. And here is like 70% pot. This is a call, in my opinion. Some races with the with backdoor hearts. 5, 5, 3. I think. I think this is going to be a check, because he's going to bet this maybe. I mean, he's going to bet this maybe 30% of the time. So he's going to check this quite often. Now, apparently we can bet this 50% of the time, but with this combo we are still going to check back very often. And since we're going to bet 50% of the time, I think the reason is that there is a slight difference between 5, 5, 3 and 5, 5 deuce, or 5 deuce. Since we are not going to play many deuces, but 5s is we're going to play more 5s than deuces, and he's not going to 3-bet with either of those. So because of this, we can bet this 50% of the time, and with a 5, as we are going to bet this 50% of the time, with a 5 we can bet this, I don't know, 80% of the time, 71% of the time. With 6, 4 we can bet 70% of the time or so. 76% of the time. 5-3, like, I don't know, 80%, 85%. If we had something like 5-8-9, now we're going to check a bit more often with this particular combo. Since if he has a 5, it's going to be a better 5 than ours, and we're not doing great against ace king queen 5. Let's put it that way. This is a check out of position. 8, 9, 10. I think we're going to see bet this, I don't know, maybe 70% of the time. So I think we can bet this maybe 60 or 70% of the time. No, I'm a bit off. We're going to bet this 38% of the time. However, with our particular hand, we're going to bet like 64% of the time, with a set and backdoor spades as well, and a gutshot. Queen 6-6. Check, check. Now maybe he can bet 50% of the time. Mostly checking, I would say. Just 25% of the time. Apparently we can bet here. Probably because our opponent still has more aces, kings, queens than we do. Jacks also. And with 10-10-5-4, it's 100% check, almost. Here, if he bets 66, although it's kind of, well, not that dryish, since there are flush draws that, but still he bets just 50%. Here I think we have to call. It's close though. That's folding. I'm calling with hearts. So when in doubt and no draw, you tend to fold apparently on the turn. Here it's an easy fold here. Fold. Here on this particular scenario, he should probably lead small percentage of the time, since he doesn't have many ace king. So whenever you have ace king, it's going to be pretty mixed between checking and betting, I would assume. 6, 7, 8. Maybe you can bet here 50% of them, maybe 50% of the time, but here it's probably going to be a check. Here I think you can bet between 40 and 50% overall, I would say 55%. And apparently with this combo you just wanna bet because your hand is horrible. yeah, because you cannot improve at all, and you are blocking a little bit the 9-10. So yeah, probably that's better a bet there. So bad hand and blocking a little bit, you prefer to bet apparently. 8-5-5. It's a fold with a 5. Maybe you can raise 50% of the time. Not even that. With 8-5, 50% of the time, maybe just 20% of the time. With 8, I think with 8 you wanna bet, you wanna raise because you're unblocking the 5s and your opponent's shoes. Ten Jack Queen. I think that it makes sense to bet small. Since this is pretty dry board. Although there are some full houses available but no flush draws, so I think that you're going to bet very often here small with all your hands, I mean. So yeah, maybe we bet this overall like, I don't know, 70% or 60% with all our range, and with this particular hand maybe we bet, I don't know, 80-90%, and most of the time is going to be small, like 60 small, 30 big, then check. So I was quite off here. I don't understand why we are checking back all that often here. Anyway, with so we bet 70% of the time, and we bet big with the nuts most of the time. And with a king without an ace, with a king and without an ace, now we're going to bet sometimes small and checking quite a bit. A king 10 whatever is going to be a check most of the time. What if we had like king 5-4? Now I think we have to bet very often and big. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we bet big with the kings, nothing else, and we bet big also with ace king most of the time, and sometimes we bet with another. Okay, jack 5-5. this is a call and should be a call almost always, or always. Even with hearts, bet raise. Okay, now it's check, pass. Small, there's no reason to bet very big here, and here I just folding, I guess. Here you can bet just 50%. Raise 70. Here 10 gives you the nuts. You have backdoor spades, but I think this is just going to be a fold right here probably. Without backdoors, it's a fold. Apparently it's a call. I'm not sure I agree there. Here we are going to bet here 50 or 60% of the time, so we are going to bet with this combo. I think it's 45% of the time, but with this combo almost always betting with backdoor spades. 10-5-5. If it's bet check raise, it's going to be 100% call or fold. I guess overall 50% betting, I guess, on the turn, or 40%, just 20% betting. For some reason with this particular combo we prefer to bet with the 8 of hearts and blocking a bit the A9, and with no prospects to improve our hand either. If we had something like 7 ace king queen, now we prefer checking. With sevens we bet maybe, I don't know, 60% of the time, 44% of the time. I'm sorry, we are out of position here, which changes. That's why we are betting just 20% here out of position, just because we're not going to have many aces here. Yes, we're going to have some flush draws, but our opponent is going to have flush draws as well, so this is not, I mean, it's an okay flop for us, but nothing crazy. Yeah. Okay, last hand, he bets 50%.